Okay. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to the DevOps Live meetup. I'm excited to have Christian Melendez here. I first met him when I interviewed him for the all-day DevOps conference that we had online. And he accepted to, he was going to be in town and accepted to do this presentation today on building CI/CD pipelines for Kubernetes. So let's give him a warm welcome and thank you, Christian, for coming.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. As Max said, my name is Christian Melendez. And just in case you find my accent a little bit weird, I'm from Guatemala, but I've been living in Madrid, Spain for around 8 months now. So don't worry, the jet lag is gone away right now. So I'm gonna suffer when I'm gonna be back. So yeah, well, I'm here to talk about Kubernetes, DevOps, cloud. Too many buzzwords, right? CI/CD, too many buzzwords here. But I guess that you are already interested in learning more about Kubernetes and how to create CI/CD pipelines and how does that fit in this model. So why don't we start with why? Why Kubernetes? Why is that a thing right now? So I guess that everyone's been talking about Kubernetes, that maybe you have some doubts about it, or maybe you think it's only the hype right now. And well, why don't we just hear about from Kelsey Hightower, who says that Kubernetes is actually a platform that you're gonna build on top of Kubernetes a few other things. And that's actually an example that we're gonna take a look later on how to implement these type of things, and you're gonna see why this is a proper statement. What is cool about Kubernetes is that it's built in with highly available architecture. Doesn't matter if a node goes down, if a cluster goes down, you will always have your application running. It doesn't matter if one node goes down, your application will be there. The only problem will be that if you are running stateful applications, you will need to take care about the state and things like that. So, but again, this talk is not going to be about Kubernetes because I think that you already have at least some basic knowledge about what is Kubernetes and why, and you're only interested in how to create the pipelines, right? So why Kubernetes is cool is because it is allowing you to deploy your application with almost zero downtime deployments. Here. So how does that? Kubernetes does that is by having an internal. It will allow you to have an internal set of pods or containers that are running. You can have canary releases, blue-green deployments, and all of those good practices for creating deployments are already built in here. So you don't have to learn how to do that. There, it is pretty much basically built in. At least this type of things with canary releases and things like that. The only problem is that, again, you will need to worry about stateful application if you have those type of application. If your application is stateless, it is going to be pretty much simple how to deploy a new application in Kubernetes. So let's just dive in. CI/CD in Kubernetes, is it really different? Well, before we start talking about how different is CI/CD pipeline in our Kubernetes world, I'm gonna start citing a few things. So just so we have a pretty a good understanding that you are in the same page that I am right now. So the objective of having a continuous delivery pipeline is that you can improve the quality and speed of feedback. So you can have that feedback almost immediately. How will you achieve that is by doing more and frequent deployments in small batches. And with Kubernetes, you will have that the possibility. Another thing is that you would like to reduce the time and resources to move from a local environment to a production environment. And the way that you will be able to reduce that part is by having a production-like environment, although there are going to be certain cases where the application is so complex that even with Kubernetes, it will be difficult to have a production-like environment. But the premise the premise is that you can be able with a continuous delivery pipeline to move from left to the right, and by using things like continuous delivery and continuous integration. Then the other thing is that you will be you would like to have a repeatable process for build, the test, deploy, and testing processes that you have in your pipeline. So the idea is that you don't do something different, and that you don't treat production as a special environment, and that you say, okay, we're going to do things differently in production. That doesn't fit. That doesn't fit here in a CI/CD. Well, in a continuous delivery era right now. I guess that with Kubernetes you will be able to create those type of things, and you're gonna understand why it is at some point creating all the resources and things that you will need to create a pipeline in Kubernetes will be maybe the hardest part. Once you have that built, someone is looking at. Once you have that there, it will be just a matter of running some commands there, and you will see that automating that part, maybe it's gonna be really easy. But again, the main objective will be to have something repeatable there. Then the idea is that you have develop an automated deployment process. So you will use other tools like Terraform, Ansible, Chef, things like that. But in this case, I'm not gonna deep dive on those tools. Just gonna focus on how you can build that in Kubernetes, and it will be pretty much like an introduction on how you can create a pipeline with Kubernetes. Lastly, the idea is that you can remove the duplication of work. Meaning, again, this is pretty much related to the premise that I was saying before. That the idea is that you don't treat any other environment differently, and you would like to avoid at the most saying that it works on my machine, it worked on my pod, it worked on my container. The idea is that you can avoid saying that. So what does that mean? How can you translate that into making deployment smoother? Automate as much as possible. We're gonna, in Kubernetes, it's gonna be pretty easy or pretty like expected that you automate everything, all your deployments that you are creating with Kubernetes. Build and pack your application only once, and I guess that with containers and Docker, you have that already built in, right? So I would say that nothing here is new. It's just that as an industry, we've learned a lot of good practices from other companies that have been doing this for several years, and now we're, as an industry, are applying those terms. But this is, to be honest, this is not something new. This is not something that we are just creating something from scratch. Just we're getting at a point where we are using standard practices right now. It means that you will also want to deploy the same way all the time. And with Kubernetes, you will see that it's pretty much the same command that you will run, that you will use to deploy either to development, to production, or to testing. Deploy in small batches and do it often. So if it hurts, do it more often, that's it. So try to avoid having, for example, long feature branches. And we're going to talk about how can you achieve that part and what are the tools right now that are starting to put this in practice and are starting to create a standard in how you develop CI/CD pipelines, not just with Kubernetes, but in general. So the last thing is that you would choose zero downtime strategy, like blue-green deployments, canary releases, and certain so on and so forth. And lastly, which this topic generates like a big controversy in continuous integration practices, which is the trunk-based development, which I think that we'll need a new meetup just to talk about that, and I don't want to get into that right now, especially if there are some developers here. So we're gonna talk about that later, and why this type of techniques or culture thinking, because for me it's more a mindset, a culture of having a trunk-based development more than a practice. Okay, so we're gonna see where does that fit, and there are gonna be some companies that, well, you might not gonna buy this, but that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that, actually. Work with environment variables. Those are gonna be good practices when working in general, not just in Kubernetes. which I think that those are going to be things that are going to help you to make to have deployments that are going to actually be expected and not going to give you any more surprises. So how does that Kubernetes workflow look like? It is pretty simple, as I was saying before. You will basically, when working with Docker or containers, you're going to start with Docker build, Docker push, a kubectl apply. That's it. As I was saying before, the hard thing will be to create all the resources needed so that you can apply that command. But that will be everything. So why don't we start with how to create a CI/CD pipeline with Azure DevOps. We're gonna use the UI and a pipeline as code. So yeah, well, no slides. Sorry, we're gonna go back to the demonstration. Oh, sorry, you didn't see there. We're gonna jump here, and I'm gonna show you. So here I'm in the Azure portal, and this is the Cloud Shield that you will have for Azure. You can see that, right? And this is gonna be the Azure DevOps. I already have something built in, just because I didn't want to spend too much time here creating that from scratch. I'm gonna practice that part, and then we're gonna create that. So it doesn't matter how much time it takes. You're gonna see at least that working at the beginning. So what I have right now is a GitHub repository here, which is basically Azure DevOps Kubernetes, and it is a simple app. It is an app that I created with .NET Core CLI, which is basically just an MVC application. So I'm gonna just do a change here, and this is how it will look like when you will do something like this live. So I'm doing a change. I'm gonna just commit here, and I will say adding a new change, and I just commit here, push that here, and you will see that the new change will be appeared in GitHub. Just a second. Okay. Oh, nope, didn't finish. Yep. So let's take a look here. Adding a new change. Here's the new commit. And if I go here to Azure DevOps and I go to the pipelines and go to builds, you're gonna see that it will trigger automatically something here. So can you see here? This is enabled as, and I already have. I also have another pipeline, which I'm gonna explain in a moment. You'll see why I have both. So if you click here, this triggered automatically this pipeline, and I didn't have to do anything else. It is just pulling the code here. It is building a new Docker image, and you can see here that these are the images that I have for that application. And the last version, it's gonna be this one, which was updated 2 days ago. So you will see that this will take some time, because I'm using the agent that is providing me Azure DevOps, and I don't have an agent that I installed by myself. If I would do that, what I will gain is this type of things, because it's pulling again all the images from Docker, and it is taking more time. But if instead you would use an agent that you manage and that you can install there, the agent from Azure DevOps, you will be able to gain some time here, which is going to be valuable, because remember, one of the objectives to have continuous delivery is that you can have fast feedback. So while that finishes, I'm gonna show you how easily it is to create that part. Let's take a look to the pipeline here, and you pretty much will have all the phases and all the workflow that I talked about a moment ago. So you will have a build command, which is going to be using an extension in Azure DevOps that is going to be running the Docker build command. You would choose here the file that you would like to choose. In case it's not a Docker file, in case something different, you can specify here either by hard coding the value here, or either by using a variable in the pipeline, and you will define here the name of the image that you would like to push. Later in the push phase, you will have something similar like as the previous one, with the difference is that the command will change. In this case, we'll run the command push. And I previously configured the connection to the Docker Hub. That's why it's pushing this automatically. And it is as simple as going here, manage. You can see that it will open a new thing here, a new screen, and you will be able to configure any other connection here. So you will be able to create a new connection here to, for example, another Docker registry that you have in somewhere else that you are not using either the registry from Azure or either the registry from Docker Hub. So you can configure this right here pretty easy. And that's going to be available here. So the other thing that I added here is that the deployment, the YAML definition that I was talking about before, that is going to be the hardest one initially to create, because everything, the state that you define in Kubernetes, you will define it as a YAML definition, right? So you will have here, you can see that I have as a default value, the image that is going to be using the simple app latest. But that is an anti-pattern because you don't want to always use the latest in case someone pushed that image there or someone pushed a new version there and it's just updated the version, right? So it is actually a good pattern or a good practice if you specify that part. So we're gonna, the way that I live, why I leave this in place, because in development is okay. In development, I will be building the Docker image with the latest stack. And for production or for any other environment, I will build that and I will replace. So basically, you just run a set command here, and you will replace latest with the build that is being created here. Then the way that Azure DevOps communicates from the continuous integration to the continuous delivery pipeline is by using artifacts. So I'm going to publish an artifact here. And the only thing that I'm interested here is this YAML definition. And this YAML definition will have now the new version. It won't have the latest command or the latest stack. It will have the new version that it created this pipeline. And that's it. We can go back here and adding a new change. Sorry, this is still building. And here, adding a new change, you can see that everything runs successfully. So you can, if you want, because you didn't want to keep waiting there, you can see the logs here. In case you're wondering what went wrong, or if something is not working correctly, you will have all the logs here, which I find that it is pretty cool. And let's go back here and see. Let's take a look to why I have this different. Why I have this as a YAML definition. Well, to be honest, we're working in a way that the less that we have to interact with the user interface, the better. Not because I'm a fan of the CLI, which I am, but it's because it will help to everyone else to have that visibility in case you want to share that with the team. So, for example, I'm using this YAML definition again here, which the .NET Build app. And this is basically the same format that I'm using. Everything that I did here in a user interface with Azure DevOps is defined here as a YAML definition. Those are the same steps. As you can see here, it is the Docker build command. It is running a Docker login here because I don't have a way here to configure the integration with the Docker registry that I'm gonna be using. And it's just basically using the Docker push. It will run a set command, again, the set command that I want to replace the latest stack here. And then the other task will be publish the artifacts. And that will take some time. You will see that it'll also finish, and it will produce the same result. The change that I did here, in case you are curious, is that I added a new tag here. Let's just zoom it a little bit. I added a tag here just to make the difference that I was building something different. You can see here in the Docker Hub that the pipeline already pushed those images, both images, 124 and 125. Updated 4 minutes ago and updated 1 minute ago. So, well, okay, you have now continuous integration in place. You have now CI in place. How would you apply CD pipeline, and how would you apply continuous delivery with this tool? So you will go with to the releases here, and I already configured this part as being after you finish that continuous integration pipeline, that it will be triggering this pipeline definition. So I have a stage here with which will be development stage, and I can add a new stage that will be like, for example, testing. And oh, sorry, I have here an empty job, and I'm gonna just add it as testing. Save. Even though I don't have any other task here, it is gonna be the same here. And I can activate here to be after this set of process here has finished. Maybe you will add here a set of automated testing here, unit testing, or any other things that that will make sure, that will verify that this deployment or this release is ready to go. You can activate that to continuously to after that automatically trigger this another phase. But if not, you can add gates here. You can do a lot of things here. If you want to have more control on how you move from one environment to another. I guess that this will be really cool for some folks that are using that are under compliance and would like to at least add a gate just before doing that to production. So let's go take a look here. And as I did this on purpose, because what I want you to see is that I'm still applying the principle of only building once. And I'm not gonna be using another new Docker image, and I'm gonna be using another new artifact. I'm gonna be using the same artifact that I deployed here. I'm gonna be deploying that in testing environment. So let's take a look to the development environment, and it is gonna be as simple as this. Remember, the Kubernetes workflow, at least a simple one that you would like to have, is that you will only be configuring the Docker build, Docker push, Kubernetes apply, kubectl apply. So this is nothing, just nothing more than that. You will add here the integration. I'm adding here the connection to Azure, but you can add another Kubernetes service. And again, you will go to the other screen that I was showing you before to add integration with Docker Hub. You will do the same to add the integration with another cluster of Kubernetes. You will say, I'm specifying these things in Azure, and I'm just specifying here the command that it will run. To which file? I can take a look to here, the artifact that has been built, and I have this graphically here, and I can see which YAML I'll use for the deployment purposes. Right now, you will see that, well, okay, again, I'm using the UI again. Azure is working on having this the same pipeline as the build, but for releases. So that is going to come in this year, I think in this quarter. So again, this same principle of using a pipeline as code or a YAML definition for creating a release pipeline, it will be available through code here too. So that's basically pretty much what you can do here. I mean, if you want to create a new pipeline here, it will be just building a new pipeline. It will be as easy as this. You can choose here the GitHub repository, because I already have this integrated. I just choose the repository, and then the master branch, for example, and you will click continue, empty job, and then you will be adding those. You will define which is gonna be the agent by default that you will be using. For example, these are gonna be managed for Azure, and if you already register someone, an agent that you already configured by your own, it will appear here, right? So by default, I will use Ubuntu, because I'm running creating a Docker image that is using Linux containers, and it will be just as easy as clicking add here, and you will be add here Docker here, and you will configure this, everything that I just did before. That's how easy is to build those pipelines here. And I'm not gonna, because I want to show you other things. So again, that's the how you would do here in Azure DevOps. So you might be wondering, okay, you might be cheating here. You just commit something, you just show just things there. But why don't we take a look if this thing lets me? That actually this change that I did here, DevOps middle live, it actually appeared here in production or in the environment that I'm using. Another cool thing is that, for example, you're gonna be able to use namespaces in case you want to continue using the same Kubernetes cluster to work with different environments, if that works for you. So I guess the internet is not working right now. There. Let's just open this here. Okay, something happened there. And it's requesting a shell, and you will see here that I have get box here. And if I go and describe here, kubectl describe here this thing, you will see that it will be using the new Docker image. See that? It is using this new Docker image. So let's go back here and let's take a look to kubectl get service and get the IP address of the service that is using this workload that I just defined. It will be something like this. And you will see that the new change appears here. And I didn't have to enter to the server, running creating the Docker image, pushing the image, and having to deploy that to Kubernetes. By creating this type of pipelines, I was able to do that automatically. So maybe we didn't see this because I was explaining you another things, but it took like a 2 minutes maybe or 5 minutes to finish all the pipeline, which is a really cool thing. It is not just because it is Azure DevOps or it is Kubernetes. It's just the practices that you are putting in place. Doesn't matter what tool, what technology you're using. As long as you follow the principles, I think that you're gonna be good to go. So why don't we go back here? Let me just change. Guess that you can see that here. Okay, it is loading here. So you were already seeing, you already saw this. I was going to talk later about how can you do this with an open source technology, which is called Jenkins X. And as you can see here, it's quite complex, but it's awesome, right? So what is Jenkins X? Jenkins X is a Jenkins sub project. It is still part of Jenkins, but they are trying to figure out how they will integrate this into the Jenkins model, and especially this Jenkins X project is for Kubernetes workflows. It is applying all the good practices that you've been reading in other books and here from the community, that they are talking about CI/CD practices and how all the technical practices that you can apply in a DevOps culture. So Jenkins X is an opinionated developer experience with the difference of how it was working with Jenkins previously or right now. If you're using Jenkins, it allows you to do everything you want, which it has its trade-offs, because I've seen horrible things happening there, which I wouldn't recommend you. And maybe that's why you might have heard really bad things about Jenkins. But this is like the Phoenix project, right? They are trying to recover from the bad experience that they have allowed to everyone to create, and now they are trying to apply. They are not trying. They are applying the good practices that, as an industry, we have learned throughout the years. It is using GitOps principles applied. It is full Git. Everything is on Git. Actually, what I did before, and again, because this was not planned to be as a workshop that we're gonna be having more than 1 hour to talk about this, and that you will be able to practice that. I created the cluster in advance so that you can see how it will look like for a developer to experience in a platform like Jenkins X. It doesn't hide anything, although for a developer will be in a way transparent what he or she is doing. It doesn't hide anything. I mean, you will be still able to see all the artifacts that is creating. You can customize that part and things like that. What I'm saying is that you will find here the Docker file. It will create a Jenkins file and maybe some help charts if you are using other things. But again, this is not something new. It is still using a Docker file, and it is still using a Jenkins file. It is still applying the principles of pipeline as code. It works with existing applications. You just have to, and also with existing Kubernetes clusters. You just have to, in a way, install Jenkins X in a cluster, in a Kubernetes cluster, and then you will need to import your application to Jenkins X, so that in case you don't have a Docker file, Jenkins X will create a Docker file. We're gonna take a look to the architecture of Jenkins, so you can see what are the tools that is using Jenkins X. And because I know that in the Kubernetes world, the ecosystem is growing every day. Every day there is a new tool out there that is doing something different. It is pretty much similar to the JavaScript world, right? Jenkins X features. So the features that you will find here with Jenkins X is that it will allow you to have automated CI/CD pipelines on top of Kubernetes. It will be you will be able to promote any environment via GitOps. So again, this will be applying the principle of using a repeatable process for building, testing, and deploying. You will be able to have a preview of each environment. So again, when we start taking a look to this, at some point you will say that, but weren't you saying that trunk-based development was the thing? Why are we talking about pull request? The thing with trunk-based development is that it says that you shouldn't be having long-lived feature branches. It is okay to have feature branches, but as long as you don't have that like a month or 2 months or whatever time that you would like to maintain that part. There are other techniques, but as I was saying before, we're not gonna talk about that today. Maybe we can talk about that later in case you're interested in having a conversation, not a discussion, right? So another cool thing is that with Jenkins X, you can create serverless pipelines, which is using Knative. And the way that will work is that it's gonna use the resources that only needs. So you will be able to create, like, for example, for that Kubernetes cluster, you can create auto-scaling groups or for the pods and for the host. And only when you need it, Jenkins X will create pods. That is a mode that you can configure. Otherwise, if you would like to not having that dynamic environment, you can just skip that part of serverless. I just wanted to make you aware that it is possible to create serverless pipelines with Jenkins X. And this is how it looks like. So let's take a look to this. So you will have here the Git provider. Remember that you will have Jenkins X is leveraging heavily on Git. You will have here, for example, a user interface or a command line interface to interact with the Jenkins X API. And you will have, for example, you could use a private Docker Hub registry, but by default, it will use the Docker registry from the public registry from Docker. As I said before, it will use Helm for packaging all the YAML and not having a lot of YAML definitions for your workloads in Kubernetes. You can easily use Helm in case your application is too complex. So here is the Kubernetes cluster, and when you install Jenkins X and integrate it with, at least with GitHub, it will do that automatically, that it will create webhooks. So every time that you do something in Git, like creating a branch or merging a pull request, it will trigger, everything will be automatically triggered by Jenkins X. You will have here the build controller, which again, this could be serverless, meaning that it will instantiate pods or containers only when you are triggering a pipeline. By default, you will have a staging and production environment, and you can create as many environments as you want. The pipeline activity will be stored in the disk storage of the cluster. That will, how you will manage that part, it will depend on how you configure the Kubernetes cluster. It's worth to say that it is integrated already with Google, Azure, and AWS. Jenkins X, it is already integrated with those cloud providers, but it is also integrated with any on-premises Kubernetes cluster that you have, even in your local machine if you're using Minikube. So the Jenkins X workflow will be, when you start, you can create, for example, I'm creating here a cluster in Google. It will be just as simple as JX create cluster, and I'm specifying the cloud provider here, and I'm skipping the login because I'm running this in the Cloud Shell, for example. But if you want to know more or want to know how to create any other cluster in any other environment, you can always go here to the official GitHub page. So, okay, how it looks like the Jenkins X workflow when you're working as a developer. You will basically have two ways. You can create a quick start that it will present you. It is not gonna be like a UI, but it will be in the command line. That again, you can automate that part, or you can just run JX import, and it will create the Docker file, the Jenkins file for you. It doesn't matter the language that you are using. With a tool that we're gonna take a look here later, is basically recommending you how to create that Docker file. Doesn't mean that you will have to stick to the Docker file that it has created for you. You can always change that part, which is, I think it is really cool. Then, for example, a way of developing in when you're using Git is that every change that you're gonna be doing, you will be creating an issue. So because you already integrated Jenkins X with GitHub, you're going to be able to create, for example, an issue and with the text description of the issue or development. And this is what we're going to do later. You can then create a new branch for that new feature, do the changes that you need to do. You will run git add, git commit. You will push the change, and then you will promote that when you are good to go with another environment. For example, that will be the command JX promote, the version that you want to run, and the environment. This is a cool thing, because in case you are wondering how to do rollbacks, you just change the version here from the previous version that it was the one that it was stable, and it will run again. You don't have to go to the process again. That will take some time. And this is how you will reduce your MTTR when you are recovering from a failure, right? So I'll put it in a nice graphic here. You will use some tools. You will see that there are some tools here that is using Jenkins X under the hood to create everything here. This is what I was talking about the big ecosystem that you will have in Kubernetes, that maybe you have heard about these tools, maybe you don't know what these tools are doing. Jenkins X have applied those different tools that will allow you to create this pipeline that we're gonna take a look how it is to create something when using Jenkins X. So for example, Draft is the tool that is using to recommend you a Docker file. It is a tool, open source, developed from Microsoft. It is, I guess that at some point you could, it's not displayed here, but you could be using a scaffold that will recommend you, again, how to create not just a Docker file, but the Kubernetes YAML definition and Helm packages, for example. So again, I could be explaining this to you, or I can just do it, right? So let's just go back to the console. And this is the application that I just created here. It's basically what I did is I'm gonna create a new one here. So just so you can see how it feels. Oh, sorry, I need to change back here. Okay. So we already have an application here, but I just want you to see how it looks like to create a new one. So I'm gonna open here and I'm gonna just create Jenkins X, create quick start. I'm just gonna click OK. So it's gonna request me which user would I like to use. The organization that I would like to use for Kubernetes for GitHub, which is my username, and I'm gonna enter the repository name, which will be something like the name of the application. So it will be something like this, DevOps Live. Then I have already some examples of the application that Jenkins has as a template, and I'm gonna use Golang, for example, Golang HTTP. And it's asking me if I would like to initiate the repository. I will say yes. Commit a message. I will say I always like to put this Genesis. Repository created, and it is going to take some time to create everything. But when you go back to your GitHub account, you will see that it already created that repository here, Jenkins X DevOps Live. So it was already integrated. And if you go here to the settings and you go to webhooks, you can see that the webhook is already all created for you. You don't have to do anything else here. So it will take some time there, and you will say, for example, get Jenkins X, get applications, and you will see that well, it is not running because it is locally. So I will have to promote that part. But instead of using that new application, what I just want you to see is that how it looks like when when you're working with an application that is already running with this. So I want to show you a few changes that I did here with this application that it created. I created, again, as a good practice, I created 2 issues here. You can see that, for example, the first issue was, well, let's just take a look to this. The first issue was to add my name into the hello world. Then the second issue was to add my second name into the hello world. So if you go here to the issue, you will see that I reference this commit, and this commit is referencing the change that I did. So you can have the visibility here of what the change was for this specific issue. And you can see here that the merge was the change was merged through a pull request, and you can go here and click here and see what the change was and take a look to the pull request. You can go here to the pull request, and you can see take a look to the ones that are closed. You can take a look to this one, and you can see all the discussion that ideally happened here when seeing this change. This comment is added automatically by Jenkins X, which is basically pre-built and available in a preview environment with for this pull request. If you click here, you can see in a previous environment the application that I'm running. And in case it is not, you cannot see this, you can see that it has here a pull request environment. It is not the dev. It doesn't say production. It just said the name of the pull request. So, oh, sorry, I just closed that part. Let's just go ahead and do a change. So the first thing that you're gonna do is like Jenkins X create issue will be -t and do a change live. So I'm gonna create here a new issue, and you can see that it created a new issue. And if we go here to GitHub, you can see that there's a new issue open here, do a change live, okay? So I'm gonna, again, what should be doing when working with this, ideally you will create a feature branch, but it's gonna be just temporary. So I'm gonna do here, git checkout p, and I'm gonna say feature 3. right? So I'm gonna change here, main go, and I'm gonna change something here from oh, let's do it again. I'm gonna just change something here from uh, DevOps Live. Change it. Gonna git add here, git commit, and I'm gonna add a message here, and I'm gonna say change live done, and I'm gonna reference the issue. So the issue is the number 5, and I'm gonna just add here 5. I'm just gonna click here, git push origin feature 3. You can see that it is working. And if I go back here to the repository, you can see that GitHub is saying me that there's a new feature branch here if I want to create a pull request. Again, you can automate this from here, but I just want to show you how it looks like the experience. So I will change, I will create a pull request here, and I'm gonna click here, create pull request. And as you can see, the webhook from Jenkins X is already activated, and it is creating the pipeline. If we go here to Jenkins X and get build logs, you can see that it is creating something here for this pull request, which is the number 6. So you can see the logs for that, and you can see that it's doing everything. It's creating the Kubernetes pod for the Jenkins pipeline. It is building the application. It is creating the preview environment, so that at some point when it finishes, you will see here that Jenkins X will add automatically a comment here with a link to the preview environment. So I can be sure that it is working. So you can see there, it is not taking that much time, and it's gonna be finishing in a moment. And okay, it's almost done. Let's see if the comment is being already created here. Nope, not yet. Haven't finished. You can integrate here another set of tests that will be running automatically. But if you notice the logs and you have already worked before with Jenkins pipelines, it is not something different, right? It is still being the same. So you can see here the pull request number 6, and here's the link to the preview environment. And if I click here, you can see that the change is there, right? So how I'm sure that this is not being deployed to staging or production? You can see that I'm gonna be running here get applications. The DevOps, looks like the DevOps live finished being deployed. So the Jenkins X Hello Go, the URL for staging environment, you can see that it doesn't have that change yet, right? You can see here that in the URL it says staging. Doesn't say it doesn't says that is the pull request that was just created before. Let's just click so you can see the difference. Pull request number 6, right? This is a preview environment, and it is not yet neither in staging, neither in production. If I click here, it's not there yet. So the way that I will do that is that the first way that I will integrate this to the staging environment is that I will accept this merge request. So I'm gonna click here, and it's gonna I'm just gonna let this default message, because I'm referencing here again the GitHub issue, and I'm just gonna click here, confirm merge, and it will be trigger the same build, Jenkins X get build logs, but it will be the one that is being created for the staging environment. So I can take a look to this here, and you can see that it is working, right? At some point when it finishes, you will see that that change is being deployed to staging environment. And if you go here to the issues, you will be able to have that trace of the changes that you've done previously. So it will take some time here, and I'm just gonna close it here. And let's say that I trust what I just did, and I'm gonna start here by adding. Oh wait, I can't remember which version it will create. So let's wait a little bit. I guess it will be. My guess it will be that it will be 004. So let's just wait. Let's better wait. I didn't show you here this, but what Jenkins X will do in order to orchestrate all the changes that you're doing is that it's gonna be create for every environment that you create, it's gonna be creating a new repository. So this environment will be environment class patch because I didn't specify a name for the cluster. It will just add some random name. So this is gonna be the repository for for the production environment, and this is gonna be for the staging environment. And you can see here all the pull requests that I've created previously, that where I've been integrating those changes to here. And I didn't show you this something really cool. Jenkins X will also not just do that, but it will create release versions so that you can see here the version 004 has these following changes. It has these issues and it has this pull request. You can see the source code here. So as you can see, it's not something new. It's just integrating all the good practices that are being placed for in other places, in other projects, in other companies, by using these tools and techniques. So let's see if this finished. Okay, it did finish. Get applications. So you can see that in staging is already running the version number 004. In production is running way behind 002. You can see that staging environment also already has this DevOps live change. So let's promote that change. Let's add here version 004 to the environment production. And it will ask me my username. I guess I did something wrong here, because it is requesting me this every time that I promote the change. So let's wait a little bit. It will create a pull request. You see that it will create a pull request in the production repository, and as long as it finishes that, you will see that the new application has been promoted to production. And I can run again this same exact command if I would like to roll back, and I will just need to run the version number 3 to this environment or to any other environment. So again, I'm just applying the same principle of a repeatable process of deploying in the same way to different environments. Well, it will take some time there to finish. So while it finishes, I guess, okay. It will create this, and you can see here, Jenkins X applications, that it will be get build logs master. It has finished. Get applications. Okay, it will take some time there. So at some point in a few seconds, you will see that the new version has been deployed here. It's taking some time because it's okay. The production one, as you can see, the production version, it already has this. So I think it took me more time because I was explaining you the workflow. But if I just do that and I don't talk, it will take like 5 minutes again to finish that part. And I was able to run the pipeline automatically with good practices in GitHub and so on and so forth. So I guess that solved that I have. Any question? Thank you. Any question? Any question?
Have you seen anybody actually using Jenkins X out in the wild?
I don't think there are too many companies using. I'm not aware of one that is using that in production. I just thought that it was pretty cool tool, and I like to play around with this type of things. And as you can see, the workflow. I guess that there's no blog post indicating this. I was reviewing the video that the creator of Jenkins X created, and he was explaining this workflow. So you can take a look to that. He also explained in more detail how the Jenkins X serverless feature works. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that it will be Go. At least to create all this tooling, because behind this everything is still being Jenkins, which is Java. Yeah. The way it does is that again everything is on Git, and you can see that that state is in those two repositories that it will create on GitHub per cluster. So yeah, it will maintain that state in those repositories. So you can always roll back by using Git commands.
Is there any UI?
Yes, there is, but because I was using the serverless feature, they are still building that part for the serverless feature of Jenkins X. But I found out that it was already too late to create that part, and if not, every time that you see the Jenkins X running, you can just click JX console, and it will print that URL for the UI, and you can see the pipeline, how it is running there. I'm not sure. But by default is GitHub. But I believe that it will have that.
In March, there's a GitLab Connect event that maybe you can ask the question there about using Jenkins X with GitLab and stuff.
Yeah, but I believe that it will make sense to support that. It's just another way to integrate that part.
Does it support secrets and cert management?
Yeah, it is supported.
What is?
Secrets and config management. Yeah, the way you will configure that part is gonna be different, but I wanted to limit the demo for today. Yeah.
The pipeline that you showed on the Azure, that's a Microsoft pipeline, I guess. That's not a Jenkins one, I believe.
Exactly. Because I added this on purpose, building pipelines, because I didn't want to show you just one tool, and I didn't want to show that many tools that are out there. I just wanted to focus on two tools that I think that are the that I like the most. It is just a personal preference. Any other question?
I have to deploy to multiple clusters or data centers. Do I create like prod 1 and then prod 2? Just like you should option prod is scaling, right?
Exactly. In that case, you will install in a way Jenkins X in each cluster, and you will need to add some parameters when you are running that command, because remember that it will change that kubeconfig context.
If you have like Soraki or some kind of tools, is that should also be part of it?
Yeah, you can integrate it. You can integrate it. How? I don't know, but you can take a look to the tutorial. But it is the intention is that it is well integrated with other things, and that you can implement as much automation as possible. So the SonarQube will be a thing there. I don't know how to do it, but yeah.
On the Jenkins X, like, you still have to create a Jenkins file. So I didn't see any Jenkins file you referred to.
Okay, the Jenkins file is created by Jenkins X. It's still being a Jenkins file. Oh, again. Okay, let's just wait a little bit. The Jenkins file is still here. And this is the repository. So it is being created for you if you don't have one. So in that case, you will add here any other stage That could be SonarQube, or that could be. But the thing that I was saying to you is that I'm not sure if that's already integrated in the command line of Jenkins X, or if you will need to integrate this by your own here. But it is possible. It is just helping you to set the foundation, and you can extend that from here. The difference with Jenkins is that if you create a blank project, it will allow you to do everything and automate everything with Bash.
On the I've got a question on Kubernetes. Just trying to know something more about it. You have this image registry for Kubernetes. Is there any out-of-the-box functionality in Kubernetes that on upload or creation of image registry, go and deploy it in this environment automatically, rather than going through all those things?
It is not. You will have a bunch of tools that Jenkins X is combining together. So, I mean, the other way is that you can just configure. I mean, you can run that by your own by running the commands like using Helm. If you want to use Helm, or if you want to use Docker, you will need to run those commands. I guess that the other old school way now. I'm saying old school because it's not that it's being old school, but you could be using Ansible to create those playbooks and automate that with those tasks. Any other question, comment? If not, we can call it and close it. Okay. So thank you, everyone.